right, 8 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking day out there. Can't complain. The rest of the country looks like it got a lot of problems. Dr. Patrick Pacalo is in the studio. He's been with us before. Very accomplished and very prolific author. He's an officer veteran of the National Guard and the U.S. Army Reserve. He served as an intelligence officer in the Reserve 464th Chemical Brigade during the Persian Gulf conflict. He has written and presented papers on the Cold War at numerous universities, a certified safety professional, and authorized OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration outreach instructor. And again, he's written a lot of books. We've talked about some of them in previous visits. Today we're talking about a book called Point 4, and there is a website that goes along with this. It is coldwartruth.com. And good morning, Dr. Pacalo. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I can see out the window the clouds are moving fast out there. I wonder what's in store for us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we're not going to get off so easy, right? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe. How you doing?
Good. It's good to be here. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody out there.
Thank you, sir. So when you look at things in the news right now, with your background, you must be able to see them with a little bit more insight than the rest of us. And the question I have about that is, because the rest of us are voters too, do you think sometimes we vote without really doing the research? Does that ever, you look at some of these stories about like the election happening in Alabama right now, and I'm not asking you to play politics in any way, but do you think we're not as educated, and I hate to say not as qualified, because I don't believe that. I believe we are qualified, but
definitely
we need to be more educated before we go and cast a vote.
Well, I can say I'm kind of ignorant about the tax plan myself. And when you tune in to MSNBC, I watch my Morning Joe, they say the tax plan is bad because it's going to benefit the rich. Well, get out the charts and graphs. Give me the figures. Show me who it's going to benefit. Don't just say it's good or bad.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we need to see that. But we have a say-so in this particular issue as far as that goes, but we don't vote on it. Nobody's going to, we
don't vote on foreign policy.
Yeah.
It's not democratic.
So, all right, so tell me about the new book. The new book is called Point 4. What does that mean?
Point 4 was a program that came from President Harry Truman, who was also a National Guardsman. But it came from one of his speeches, January 1949, the State of the Union. His fourth point in the speech was to train technicians and give technical advice as foreign aid instead of more meddling with foreign governments and pumping money into foreign organizations. It was a different approach to foreign aid, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. And
is, for the layman's term, I'm trying to ask you this so that I understand. Is it like give a man a fish versus feed you know what I mean?
Sure.
Versus teach a man to fish?
Sure.
So so Point 4 is like teaching a man to fish.
Right. We would bring people here, train them, send them back to their countries. Traditional foreign
I like
aid,
that idea. That makes sense.
Yeah. We still do that. Our colleges are filled with foreign students, our technical institutes, universities, etc. But, the Huffington Post says foreign aid is a good deal because it's only $15 billion. First of all, $15 billion is more than I got in my checking account. And second of all, it's more than $100 billion if you look at all the federal agencies, what's going to foreign countries and governments. It's hidden throughout the budget, and for me, it's high time we quit that.
So is the president that we have now, current President Trump, is he lowering some of that money? Is he reducing some of that money? Are we going back to the Point 4 concept?
No. Foreign aid stays about flat, about the same, Republican, Democrat. It's one of those elephants in the room that nobody likes to talk about. And like I said, the Huffington Post likes to sweep it under the rug and say it's only $15 billion. So why pay attention to it? Don't look here. We don't need to look. We don't need to investigate this.
Right. So when did you start writing this particular book?
About 2 months ago, I started digging into it.
Oh, this is a new one. Huh?
Yes.
A very new one.
Yes.
I think I heard you tell Robin this is in the works.
Yes, it's going to be researched, written, and produced all here in Marion County. We have everything we need at Central Florida College. The county library system is excellent. The internet can supplement that. And this is more me versus the sources, me and the sources, whereas friends, family, colleagues all had a lot of input in Cold War warfare. I want to just dig into the meat of the issue and bring it out.
Have you started digging?
Yes.
What have you found so far?
Well, the public library here, the main branch, has an excellent collection of Truman biographies, including his letters compiled by Bess Truman. And I've started digging into that. State Department papers, things like that, can be found at the college. I have my library card there, but I haven't gotten into that yet. I'm just getting into this thing.
Was Harry Truman shortchanged by some when he was president?
I think he was. He was a plain-spoken man. What you see is what you get. I would say, and you're not supposed to emphasize the negative, but Eisenhower had a lot of hidden agendas in his policies from the time he was a general through president. Mm-hmm. I think you could take Harry Truman for what Harry Truman said and did. There's one quote: when they were redesigning the intelligence agencies after the Cold War, he is supposed to have said, "I want no Gestapo at any price," about a plan that Donovan, the OSS general, had. I don't believe he said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, really?
They canned that plan, and then they came up with CIA, which was essentially what Donovan had planned anyway.
Oh, wow.
It was a public fiasco when Donovan originally announced the plan, but there were hearings in Capitol Hill about Pearl Harbor. How can we prevent that? How can we fight the Cold War, et cetera, et cetera?
So do you think we're manipulated by a higher power? I don't mean God. I mean in human form. Is there something that is the president inevitably a puppet of something else?
Well, there's a hidden hand. I'd say the biggest hidden hand is that people in the media, the professionals that are supposed to be digging into the data, just take what they feel and think instead of digging into it. And that is kind of a hidden hand in and of itself. It's knee-jerk.
Well, do you think we're being manipulated as the public then? Maybe not by somebody over the president, but maybe government in general.
We're being manipulated by momentum, by ignorance.
But do you think the news stories, for example, that we seem to focus on, sexual assault is a big story this month. Are we looking at those stories when we should be looking at other stories like foreign policy stories? Is the Jerusalem story a big story?
Jerusalem is a big issue. I believe I have a stake in it because I'm a former service member. I consider myself a scholar of 20th century U.S. history. I try to stick to the history in my living memory of the generation before me. I'm an American. John Mellencamp said, "We are the people and we live forever." And one of my ancestors, my great-grandfather, last name was Albu, which means white in Romanian. He came from Bessarabia, a place where there's a lot of Islamic people, Turkish descent mostly. So I look at this and I say, if the Israeli people want their capital to be Jerusalem, our embassy should be there. The 10-ton pink elephant in the room in the Middle East is Gaza. Nobody's talking about it.
We used to. Why have we stopped talking about Gaza? That used to be the biggest thing we talked about.
I don't know, but you've got people and people and people packed together there with very limited resources, and it's a problem. It's a ticking time bomb.
Help me understand the Jerusalem story a little bit more, not to go back to something you just touched on, but the way I understand it, and I'm going to tell you what I understand, and then as the teacher, I'm going to ask you to correct where I got wrong, okay? The way I understood it is that there were several presidents before Trump that already made the decision to move the embassy. Now Trump says we're going to move the embassy, even though the other guys already said we're going to move the embassy. Why is it different this time?
Why is it different this time?
Yeah. I mean, didn't Obama say we're going to move the embassy?
He did. The plan was in the works. And it's going to take 3 to 5 years to accomplish that.
Which means that he might not even be president.
True.
So why is his statement somehow more newsworthy than when Obama made the statement?
I'm almost at a loss. I want to say some editor got a wild idea to key in on this as sensationalism, or a group of editors or editorial boards looked at this and said, let's make this a big issue.
So then if it takes 3 to 5 years, why didn't it take 3 to 5 years from the time Obama made the statement? Well, I don't understand this.
Well, the money has to be appropriated for the new embassy. The site has to be purchased or given by the Israeli people. When you build an embassy, there are security considerations. I would be surprised if the embassy isn't complete for another 10 years.
Okay. Do you mind if I stick on this for a little bit? Because I'm honestly confused about this story. Okay.
Go ahead.
So Israel has, for years, considered Jerusalem to be their capital. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know when? I mean, was Tel Aviv ever their capital?
I don't know. I would guess it was provisional, like the German capital in Bonn was during the Cold War.
Okay. Oh. So, but if the United States says Washington, D.C. is our capital, what difference does it make to me if France has their embassy in Philadelphia?
It doesn't. They decide where their capital is.
Right. So why is it so important that we have an embassy in Jerusalem? I don't understand this.
You think we should stay in Tel Aviv?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, why is it so important to the world that we have an embassy, that our embassy stays in Tel Aviv as opposed to why is it so important to them that we're moving our embassy?
I can't answer that. I can't crawl inside the head of the media pundits and tell you.
So that's what it really is then?
Yes.
That's the manipulation?
Yes.
Wow, that's
fascinating stuff.
And is that part of what the book is about?
Not really. No, that's just... No, I'm not going to touch on that.
Just let me reintroduce you, if you don't mind. Dr. Patrick Pacalo is in the studio. He's got a list of credentials that would impress anybody. He's got a website, coldwartruth.com. His book is not out yet. It's in the works. It's called Point 4, but you have a load of other books. How many other books have you written?
9.
9, wow.
Well, what did you find so fascinating about Harry Truman that you have to dissect what he has done and what he has said and written to make the American people embrace him more?
You mean, what about his character and experience?
Yes.
Well, I discovered he was a National Guard colonel by accident, and there's a whole book on it's called Citizen Soldier or something. I think that's the title in the county library. Mm-hmm. I haven't had a chance to dig into that one too much yet, but he volunteered for service when World War II broke out, and the War Department said, "No, thank you, we don't need you, Colonel." And then he became vice president, and then he became commander-in-chief, so who got the last laugh on that?
You really are a high-caliber guest. You really are. I mean, you really should be on the bigger shows. I don't want to put us down, but I really mean this. Somebody like Glenn Beck, I don't know if you're a fan of these guys, but...
Sure, I listen to Glenn.
I just think you'd be a perfect guest for somebody like that. Do you have any aspirations for the book itself? What is your hope for the reader? What do you hope the reader gets out of the book?
That we can take a different approach to foreign aid than we have, that we can quit pushing money at the problems of the world. That's a big statement, but, it's easy to throw money. It's harder to design a program that works and does what it's supposed to do.
Well, but do the countries that are actually receiving the money from us really appreciate the fact that we're bailing them out on
Not
different
at all.
areas?
The World Bank is a scandal. We put $30 or $40 billion into the World Bank, and you buy your votes in the World Bank. That's how you buy your influence. To me, it's excuse me, it's almost a baksheesh, a payoff system. We say to the world, we'll push this money in the World Bank, and you just leave us alone. We don't care. It's not a bank. Banks invest, get a profit, and return the profit to the bank, and the bank reinvests the profit. Mm-hmm. It's a total loss.
So is that why somebody like Kim Jong-un is doing what he's doing, so that we include him in on some of those gifts?
Oh, quite probably. He's got an ulterior motive.
Yeah, he wants to be part of the gift-receiving end of it, right?
Sure.
And how do we determine, how does the United States determine whether a country is worthy of us to give them money?
The World Bank does that based on like I said, you literally buy your votes. We're the biggest contributor to the World Bank, so we have the biggest voice, but we don't have by any means a majority. The breakdown is on the internet. I don't have the exact figures. I think we put $30 or $40 billion into that thing a year. I'm not sure.
And is that the fault of the United States? Because after the war, we helped rebuild Germany, we helped rebuild Japan, helped rebuild Vietnam. Is that the main reason?
I'm kind of.
That other countries look
The
toward
World
the
Bank
United
has done
States?
good things. It's not wrong to look to the United States for guidance, but I think it's wrong to look to the United States for a handout. Well, you know, why should we be handing out money all over the world?
Yeah.
You know, it's the same old argument.
So let me try to play devil's advocate, and I want you to know in advance that I'm not necessarily agreeing with the person I'm going to become now. I'm going to be a character here. Okay, so, and let me be as a character. Let me be an elected official in Congress. Okay, so we're trying to make a decision in Congress, and there's country X that wants some money, and if we use
That's not the way it works, Larry.
no,
We give the money to the World Bank. The Federal Reserve and its tentacles decide how they're going to vote in the World Bank as to where that money goes. Congress has very little say once they appropriate the money.
but
where it goes.
who do they give it to? People who ask for it?
Sure, I guess people apply.
okay, so-
Now there are foreign aid programs that are directly funded and detailed by the Congress. Okay, but a lot of the money that goes into these organizations like the World Bank is just kind of sloughed off without a lot of supervision.
Well,
Without a lot of-
okay, I didn't know that. And the book will cover all of that?
Somewhat. I'm going to have to touch on it.
Okay.
I want to dig into what Point 4 was and how we provide the technical assistance. I want to provide the alternative.
That's what I wanted to kind of be a, what do you call it?
Devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate against or whatever. So let's say there's a country, forgive me for not understanding how it all works, but let's just say country X wants money, asks for money, and so we say, no, we're gonna teach you how to fish instead of giving you the fish. We're using that metaphor again. As a congressman who's opposed to that, opposed to Point 4, let's say I say, yeah, but if you teach this guy how to build a bridge, but you don't give him the materials to build the bridge with, he's never going to be able to build a bridge. Just using a really simple example. Does that explain why giving money is sometimes important?
No, let him write a business plan and go to an institution that lends money and get his money. We'll tell him how to do that, or her, how to do that.
Good answer. I like that answer.
That's excellent.
Well, that's awesome. Gosh, it goes fast when you have a good guest, doesn't it, Robin?
Yeah.
Okay, so coldwartruth.com is the website.
Larry, that's down right now.
Oh.
I have
I'm
internet
sorry.
issues.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So how do we get a hold of you then?
There's going to be a new website, okay?
Oh,
I haven't got
tell
it
me.
up yet. It's called lifehistory.biz, B-I-Z.
Oh, okay, it's not there then.
No, Tripod is going to be the host, my old host. I'm moving on to Better Horizons, but I'm having data processing issues right now. And
So
I have to get my own business plan together.
So for the sake of somebody listening to this, because we're recording this,
Historybooks54@yahoo.com. They can get a hold of me.
okay, there you go. That's what I wanted to know. Well, Patrick, thank you for coming in here. Good to see you again. You're an amazingly smart man, and we're not even qualified to start asking you these questions, but because we play accordion and mandolin, and that's about as far as we go. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and I really appreciate people with your kind of intellect helping those who don't have your intellect understand what's going on in the world. Because as I said in the opening, I think a lot of times we try really hard to understand who we're voting for, but we don't really know all the issues,
No, and that's kind of our own fault. I've got the Sunday paper. I haven't even read it yet because I see things as more important that I can't dig in and read the Sunday paper. That's my own ignorance. I think everybody does it to a degree. Some people get 2, 3, 4 newspapers and dig into them all. What we need to set aside the time to familiarize ourselves with the issues. We need to educate ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, in doing news, we read the websites of many, many different newspapers. But again, it's all surface stuff. And it's all taking what they say at their word. We don't know. Do you agree with Donald Trump that a lot of news we get is fake news?
Yes.
Yeah. And how do we discern between the two? I mean, how do you know what's fake and what's not?
Well, it comes down to choosing your sources, considering the sources. An old scoutmaster always said, consider the source, consider the source.
Is that why you're here? Because we are the source. Thank you again for coming in here. Do you celebrate the holidays?
I do.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. What do you celebrate?
Christmas.
Christmas. Okay, well,
Nice.
Merry Christmas to you. Dr. Patrick Pacalo. Again, give your email address, I guess.
historybooks54@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, we are up against that break. Let's take that break right now, and we'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accidents. On this Tuesday, sunshine and becoming breezy in the afternoon, high 72 to 76. Clear and rather chilly Tuesday night, lows in the low to mid-30s in the coldest inland spots, about 42 along the coast. Sunshine but cooler for Wednesday, high 59 to 63.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. Voters in Alabama today are sending someone to the Senate, Democrat Doug Jones or Republican Roy Moore.
Polling places are now up and running across the state, and it's tough to say how this election will play out. State officials don't expect a huge turnout today, but experts say how evangelicals and African Americans show up could decide this race.
Fox's Grinnell Scott in Montgomery. The last Alabama Democrat elected to the Senate was Richard